I find this schematic useful. Lower esophageal sphincter, stomach, and at the lower end of the stomach is the pyloric sphincter, and leading into the duodenum. Doesn't really show the upper esophageal sphincter here, but we would expect could be some movement this way. When the stomach is full, we also have to think about gastric emptying time. And there are some guidelines for that, not true standards, but guidelines. And I think most would say we probably empty our stomach nearly completely within about an hour. I'm pointing this out because spit up or gentle reflux is pretty common in infants. And if it's not affecting the airway or some other factors, they're going to grow out of it. Some of my GI colleagues say spit happens, but that's usually just kind of a gentle. It comes out the mouth, it might go down the front, it might go on the carpet, but it's not forceful. If or when infants projectile vomit, I'm going to add that right here, projectile vomit, that is never considered to be normal, and that might be a problem at the pyloric sphincter, and that might be restricted, and sometimes that needs to actually have a surgical release. So just be aware of that as you talk to parents and as you're observing infants and as you are making plans for even whether or not a video swallow study is needed or it's the right timing for that. But remember, this is the pyloric sphincter. This one is of an infant who's still preterm. I think this was done at about 35 or 36 weeks with some question about pulmonary status and risk for aspiration. I am showing this to you because I am so impressed by the one-to-one suck, swallow pattern, pretty short. And I think you're going to see one aspect that you may consider to be a problem. And I'm going to give you a heads up here that you're going to see a little bit of pharyngonasal backflow. So just watch. Look, suck, swallow, suck, swallow, suck, swallow. I don't know if I didn't catch it here, but it looks like there's a little bit of the contrast that's moving back and forth. It doesn't look like she's continuing to get more up into the nasopharynx. It is just moving back and forth. But doesn't she look efficient? Not very many of them can do that one-to-one continuous suck to swallow. Look at that. Do you see this? Now, I would interpret that as being typical and okay to do oral feeding, nipple feeding, without any major changes. You notice I didn't use the word normal because I don't know what normal is. There could be a risk about this little bit of pharyngonasal backflow. For instance, if at the end of the exam, there's still a little bit right here, it could spill down and she wouldn't be prepared to swallow. So there would be a possibility of aspirating with that. It's not that she's getting more up there, it just hasn't really moved. And then we follow down, esophagus is clear, it's in the stomach. And that was all we did. So, looks very typical, looks very functional, with one little question about that pharyngonasal backflow, and at least caution to parents that once in a while she might aspirate. Is she going to get in trouble if she aspirates just occasionally? Probably not, if it's thin liquid. But again, there's that question, how much for how long? Yes, he has a little bit of residue. He spends a lot of time with getting the bolus ready to propel over his tongue. No residue in the piriform sinuses, pretty timely initiation, no aspiration. So does he look like he might be ready to advance his oral feeding?
Thanks, Trevor. Good job. Can you do another swallow? Just go. Make all your muscles squeeze together. Good job. You can stay right there with your head, look straight ahead at me.
So that was the thicker. So on the basis of the swallow study itself, he looked like he would be appropriate for an intensive program to advance his feeding. A still lateral view is always obtained, and then the radiologist looked at this after the study, and he immediately called the physician and said, you see this big wide gap here? He has significant subluxation at the atlantoaxial articulation comprising compromising the spinal canal by approximately 40%. So there was a structural finding. I show you this at this point to emphasize the importance of radiologists, speech pathologists, and we focus really on the function of the swallowing, but the importance of having that radiologist who has more knowledge and experience in terms of what could even be some subtle structural changes. In this case, not so structural, but not picked up by the speech pathologist who did the study at that time. Now, it's not just the motor positioning of those lips. It is also the fact that those infants then take advantage of some fine sensory cues on the inside. They're called the pars villosa. They're on the inner ridge of the specialized mucosa, and they actually help to facilitate lip seal. And when infants retract the upper lip or the lower lip, they are not going to have the right set or the best set for nipple feeding. So that's a really very important point. Now, procedure. It would be really so good if we could start with the thinnest liquid in a controlled bolus size, either by spoon or single sip. But I started with no fixed order. But you would like to try to start with the thinnest in a controlled way and then work toward thicker. Because we don't want residue sitting in the pharynx. Let's say you got residue in the vallecula or even in the piriform sinuses of a pudding consistency. And then you offer thin liquid and there's aspiration. Well, was the aspiration post-swallow on the residue, or was it pre-swallow or at the initiation because of a timing problem with the thinner? So keep that in mind. Again, knowing the underlying diagnoses, what the child's experience is, where the development is, and all of those factors. So if a parent tells you he's not going to take anything if he gets his liquid first, well, you really have to make your decision along with the parents. If thin liquid is aspirated, it is more easily expectorated. But remember, those young infants and those with neurologic impairment aren't likely to cough. We did a report back in 1994 of 186 patients. This was retrospective review, and looked at textures that they aspirated. Of that group, 48 of them aspirated. And without going into that study at all, bottom line was 94% from infants to teenagers aspirated with no cough. That same percentage primarily aspirated on thin liquid because it's more likely to be a timing problem than it is a neuromuscular weakness, especially at the infant level. But you consider that. So you're not likely to get a cough. And when a parent says, oh, I know he doesn't aspirate because he never coughs, you really worry about those. Or, well, he coughs every time he aspirates. Now, mind you, no swallow study has been done. So I know he's okay because he coughs. Well, the cough is a nice thing to know that they've responded in a sensory way, but it doesn't mean they've cleared it. Now, I'm going to show you this swallow study in a child who is about less than 2 years old. Complicated medical history. Had a gastrostomy tube with a fundoplication, and she was making gains in speech production, doing some small volume oral feeding, primarily liquid and thin purees. And then several weeks before this study was actually done, she was showing more drooling, and she was having almost like dysarthria, but probably more likely related with her drooling. So the recommendation was made for a video swallow study and determination as to whether there was a problem about the fundoplication. So there's a lot of air here, so you don't really see the pharynx well, but you'll be able to tell how well she actually swallows. And then because the fluoroscopy unit was continuing to be on for the closer look at the esophagus, I let my video keep running. It was not part of my video swallow study, but I think it's the only time I've gotten this much of a demonstration to be able to show to people where that fundoplication is. So let's see if I've got this straight. And you will hear the surgical fellow who's in this study as well, because he wants to know that something will go through that tight fundoplication because they don't want to have to dilate it. So I'm giving you kind of a little hint here as to where the problem might be. I can't do it in slow motion, and I can't go back and redo it, but I can stop it. So let's just see what happens here. You will hear people talking as well.
Swallowing is looking good. A little slow in making it happen, but that part's good. So just keep drinking. Now, okay? From my perspective...
So no obvious difficulty oropharyngeal here. And now you hear me say, from my perspective...
It's on to you for esophageal. Esophagus is the bigger issue here.
I'm going to stop this right now. So here's the lower part of the esophagus. This is where the fundoplication is. Remember, that's that surgical wrap to prevent reflux. And this is in the stomach. So the radiologist is doing this under this fluoroscopy, but he's going to make a couple of flat films. So you will know when that happens as well. But you see this accumulation down here low in her esophagus? She didn't drink all that much, but it doesn't look like all that much has gotten into her stomach, does it?
Keep drinking, kiddo. Drink, drink, drink. Drink, 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 drink.
So you see just that little bit went in. He got his film.
See the mist in there.
Okay, now she has stopped drinking, just so you know that.
Yeah. See, she's gonna start doing that.
Wait, you want to start drinking again if Mom can get her to?
Drinking, drinking. It's milky.
Oh.
See, she's gagging.
It's okay. It's going through. See how it's going
It's
through?
okay,
Mhm.
darling.
Did you hear the fellow say it's going through? See, it's going through. Well, not very much is going through. And now you notice how it begins to back up, because if the volume increases here and is not going through on a regular basis, she's going to really have a bigger problem. They would have liked for us to work with her to get her to swallow better, but that wasn't going to happen. So clearly, she was going to have to be dilated, and that did happen within a short time after this study. And then her speech started clearing up, her drooling was less, and she could take small volumes of oral feeding and gradually make gains. For nipple feeding, we figure if they take more than 3 sucks per swallow, it's a red flag for a problem. And I think there are a number of at least clinical reports that say 1 to 3 sucks per swallow can be functional. And if you just think about it, if an infant is sucking 5 or 6 or 7 times to get enough liquid out of that nipple before they can initiate a swallow, even if they have the appropriate timing and a functional pharyngeal swallow, that's going to be too much effort. feedings will be prolonged, and it's too much effort. And you can note something about gag. Gag in and of itself has no bearing on swallowing. I'm going to show you a video swallow study that will exemplify that very well later.